that East Africans are no different than other Africans theory. And of course, I've already shown you that East Africans have twerking like the rest of Africans. They have stomping their feet. Their music is identical, polyrhythm. And of course, they have extensions from Arabia. And by extension, the black people in Arabia, especially Yemen, are symbolized with these same traits, and they harbor them, they keep them till this day. And of course, later on, we shall look at North Africa to show you that there's an exact copy within the North African countries, and that people who are trying to separate the North Africans from the rest of Africans, they're doing this in order to establish a certain air about the area of the Middle East. But the Middle East, like I said, is no different. Not the Middle East. North Africa is no different than the rest of Africa. If think about this for a second. If North Africa, with the foreigners and everything that has been included, still carries dances and music from Africa, East Africa, with their foreign invaders, has still kept its traits. The Horn of Africa has still kept its traits. Southern Africa, with its European invasion, still kept its traits. West Africa, then does it not follow that the only place that would be different in the past, there's only one place in the world that would be different. It would be ancient Egypt if it's different. And I've already shown you that Egypt has similarities to the rest of Africa. I'm talking about, though, starting from Libya all the way throughout the entire continent, the only place that would be different if ancient Egyptians did not abide by these African standards, then they would be the only exception, the lone survivor. So, why have I displayed this dance on camera? Well, this dance from Ethiopia is a very unique dance, and I'm pretty sure most people from the Horn of Africa, or generally East Africa, think that this dance is unique to the Abyssinians or that culture. But I assure you that this dance exists all over Africa. These styles have regional developments which makes them slightly different, but as you can tell, for the most part they are the same, and they have multiple versions. Let me describe the two. There's one where it's almost like the robot. You're vibrating in this way, but you keep moving one part of your body, like your arm or your, but it's more of an upper body dance. Obviously it utilizes your entire body, but you can dance one part of your body, and I will show you an older version of this later. But as you can see, in South Africa, which is very far away from Ethiopia, you see this dance, and I've seen it in Congo as well, and there's multiple versions of this in West Africa. The tribe that preserves this dance the most are the Xhosas of South Africa, but there's also a Sutu version from Lesotho, which is a different country than South Africa. And there's also Botswana has this. There's also, I think this dance is also there in Kenya, but I'm not sure. And here's an old version of it. And I want you to keep what I just said to you in mind. Stomping is there in North Africa, which has been Arabized to the most, but they keep their culture. And also East Africa, Southern Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, the whole continent. Keep that in mind when I say only Egypt would be an exception, and nothing about the dances that we see on the wall give us an indicator that they would be any different. Where would they get the outside influence that would make them not dance the same, especially given the fact that if you believe that Yemen or that area of the Levant is responsible for some of the dances, well, if you don't believe that Africans brought those dances there, those dances are common in that region as well. even though I know that it was the Africans who brought the dances to that region. But if you believe that, then we do know how Egyptians would have danced. They would have danced typical to the Africans. Even their music would have been typical to Africans. And keep in mind, this is similarity number whatever, number 100 or something. But I want you to pay attention to these loose fitting belts. You always ask yourself, where do these loose fitting belts come from? Why do you always see that in Africa? It's like a common style that you see. Well, this is another arc back to history that shows you that there isn't really a difference and that the Egyptians were fueled or funded by the same initial economy, initial push from the culture that persists or lies underneath the African diaspora. Keep in mind that this belt is not holding up anything. As you can see with the ancient Egyptian ones, they're stark naked. The Zulu one, you can see right there over the black skirt, it's got the same pattern that you see on the Egyptian one and on the Ethiopian one, which is yellow and red, right at the other end of the Egyptian one. And then you can see in the middle wearing a white dress with the red and black flowers, but there's a belt around. That belt is also part of this thing. As you can see, it also plays no real role outside of aesthetics. The Ethiopian woman also has this belt that is similar to the one that's right next to the picture next to it around her neck. And you will see this as well a lot in Africa. These belts, like I said, they don't serve a purpose of a belt where they're holding up pants or something. They're actually just loosely hanging. And sometimes you will see, just like in North Africa and Southern Africa, they go underneath the buttocks, especially when you're going to do that sort of dance where you, like, I guess, hula dance a little bit. I showed the South African version of this dance. I showed the Ethiopian version of the shoulder dance. And now let's see the Nilo Saharan version of this dance. And as you can see, it replicates similar theme or similar version, even though there's another version in this region where you do the jumping thing, because this region occupies large jumps. And I've noticed this in Africa that there's these concepts which are extremes of a subtlety. So there's like a subtle thing like jumping in Africa during dances, and you will see in places where they're very tall, like the Dinkas and people like, or the Noor, or any of those places where they're very black and very tall, they do these jumps as well as the shoulder movements at the same time.